When I bet, I like getting something back, even if I lose. That's why I bet with Fanatics Sportsbook. When I place a bet with them, I earn fan cash, win or lose. I can flip fan cash into bonus bets or use it for new team apparel on Fanatics.com. Download the Fanatics Sportsbook app and let the fan cash flow. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 800-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Well, it is not often that we have a Knicks move, and we go to an emergency live stream, which we are on right now. Hi, Jeremy. And the Knicks move that we are discussing is overshadowed by another piece of news that one could argue is more relevant to the Knicks, and not only the Knicks, but to several other teams around the league. Than anything the Knicks have done or will do in this free agency period. Hi, Jeremy. How you doing?
Hi, John. I was on a sales call, and the news broke.
Now you're not.
Yabusele, and it was the end of the call. So I was like, thanks all. Gotta go. And here we are.
So let's say what happened first. So
sure.
Actually, it was 11:02 was the time of the Shams tweet. So 18 minutes ago, as of right now, it's 11:20 a.m. Shams broke the news that the Knicks were indeed using their taxpayer mid-level exception, the full amount, it would seem, to sign Gerschon Yabusele, who has had. Is there another thing?
Oh no, I was just making a French noise. Go ahead. Sorry. Keep going.
Who has had one of the stranger careers that we have seen from a professional basketball player in certainly my memory, getting drafted in the first round by the Boston Celtics, flaming out in pretty spectacular fashion. He was, unequivocally a bust. Went and spent, I don't know, was he in Europe for half a decade? It was in Europe for a while. And then memorably had a very good Olympics a year ago, put himself kind of back on the national stage. The Philadelphia 76ers, maybe out of desperation, took a shot, signed him to a league minimum deal. He got an opportunity to perform for a Philadelphia team that was beset by injuries, and really put himself on the radar for a lot of very good teams. And I think it's notable that Yabusele had two choices here. It's apparently the two choices for where he was going to play this upcoming season came down to the Knicks and the Denver Nuggets. And he chose the Knicks. And maybe that had a little bit to do with money, because we talked a little bit yesterday about how the Denver Nuggets went under the tax with the Porter Jr. trade. There was a lot of talk this morning about whether they plan to go over the tax. Neither here nor there. He did pick the Knicks. Some of the other teams that were mentioned in connection with Yabusele, I'm just scrolling right now to look for it. There were a few other teams. Like, there were a lot of teams that were interested in Yabusele. So he's coming here on the taxpayer mid-level. I want to be San Antonio, Milwaukee. We're going to get to Milwaukee in a second. I want to offer a hearty congratulations to Jeremy Cohen. Jeremy Cohen nailed this one 18 ways from Sunday, highlighting Yabusele as the player to watch, his player to watch on the mid-level cap or no cap. And then last night doubling down, saying if there's one guy that I think the Knicks would still give the taxpayer mid-level to, it is Gerschon Yabusele. We'll get to how he fits on the Knicks in a moment, but before we get there, I just want to throw it back to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm happier that Yabu is a Knick above all else. It's great that the Knicks have that front court help. Here's something I do want to talk about, and John, I'm sure you'll find this fascinating as well. So let's say the Knicks are signing Clarkson with the minimum as expected, and they're giving Yabusele the taxpayer mid-level exception as expected, which I believe Stefan Bondi reported that the second year of
player option
is a player option. I love the fit. I always have with those above the break threes, a guy who can catch and shoot, who can be a big body. He's not going to be great on the defensive end, which means you've bolstered your bench with players who really aren't the strongest defensively, but you needed that offensive punch, and it opens up a lot dynamically. But here's where it's going to get really fascinating, and you're not going to get this anywhere else, folks. Right now, the Knicks with Yabusele and with Jordan Clarkson's contract on the books, that would be 12 players, right? We've got Cat, OG, Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Mitch, Yabusele, Deuce, Dadier, Clarkson, Kolek, Huckporty. That's 12 players. That's 2 roster spots remaining. The Knicks are hard capped the second apron with the Yabusele signing. I would imagine they gave him the full $5,685,000 of the tax pyramid level. That gives them space of $3,532,505.
And we should also note that they have tendered a qualifying offer, which as of now, they have not rescinded, to Kevin McCullough Jr.
Right. So perhaps they do that, right? Okay. They can bring him back on a minimum contract, which is a little bit over $2 million. Give them just enough space to give a player a rookie exception contract and get to the minimum 14. However, if they didn't give McCullough that amount, if they went to a veteran minimum, right? Let's say they signed, some DeLon Wright for the sake of it, or Landry Shamet, whatever name you want to throw about there. That would be basically $2.3 million. That would likely not be enough to sign someone to the rookie exception, which is the smallest amount possible. It would be a hair under it. So the rookie exception is, I want to say 1.27 million. And if you brought back a veteran who's played more than 2 years, the amount you'd have remaining is 1.24 million, just under 1.24. So yes, you could get McCullough, and then you could bring a rookie exception player in here. You could be completely done. That's your summer rock and roll.
And to be really real quick, just so people don't think that we're focusing on McCullough, it has nothing to do with McCullough. It has to do with McCullough is a player with 1 year of NBA experience. We are literally talking about the difference in a minimum contract for a player with 1 year of NBA experience versus a player with 2 or more years of NBA experience. It doesn't matter if they have 2, 3, 5, 15, 78 years of NBA experience. Once you get more than 2, your salary hold or your salary number on the books for next season bumps up to 2.525 million, whereas a player with 1 or fewer years of NBA experience, actually might be looking at the wrong year. 2.296. Player with 1 or fewer is 2.048. So and that difference of $250,000, that right now, before we get to whatever Jeremy's going to say next, is the difference between the Knicks being over the second apron, which they are now barred from going over because they've used the taxpayer exception, versus the Knicks being under the second apron.
Exactly. Thank you. So they can squeeze by with McCullough and a rookie exception. If you're thinking, great, the Knicks are running it back and they've just added Clarkson and Yabusele. However, they would be so close to the second apron. So close. Now, they could do one other thing here, which is similar to last year. They could have 12 players on the roster enter the regular season, and then they could sign McCullough, for example, to the same $2 million minus 14 days, and they could sign a player to a rookie exception minus 14 days and give themselves a little bit more breathing room. Yeah. They could wait to sign a veteran for 14 days, and they could still put the rookie exception, and they might just be able to squeak by But in both of those scenarios, they are so close, so close that it just makes me wonder. You have added 2 players who expect to be in the rotation, right?
Yeah. And not only in the rotation,
you're not going to have Clarkson play under 20 minutes per game, and you're bringing Yabusele here not just to get paid, because he could have gotten paid probably more money in Denver with a good portion of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception, but they could have. I mean,
they could have. It's a question of whether they were willing to.
And I would imagine, based on where Denver's standing was, we can give you more money, the Knicks can't, and the Knicks probably saying to Yabusele's agent, with some of that greasing of the palms that we saw with the Diawara draft pick, which is why, to me, that always felt like it was I scratch your back, you scratch mine, or we're all friends here kind of thing. In addition to, also
same agent,
Dadier's friend. Yes. And in addition to, this is just Nouveau York Knickerbockers. That's essentially what the Knicks are going to be. That's the French version, I suppose.
Bring back Frank.
They could do that. Absolutely. Sure.
Anyways,
in more realistic scenarios, the point being, the Knicks are so close to the second apron that if you told me they could squeeze by, I could say yes, absolutely. But there are a lot of mouths to feed here and a lot of hungry men. There are only so many minutes that can go around. And I'm just putting on my thinking cap and wondering, are the Knicks about to do some sort of consolidation move that sends more money out the door and gives them a little bit of breathing room and also clears up the glut that they have created themselves? Because let's go through it very quickly.
Yeah.
And then I'll turn it over to you. If you had the starting 5 of, just theoretically, just naming players: Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, Towns. Now you have Clarkson, McBride, Hart, Yabusele, Robinson. Even if you didn't have Huckporty play a single minute, you also have Kolek as the 11th guy. Then you have Pacome Dadier, who's 12. And suddenly, it's great that you want to expand your roster. And I would imagine the Knicks are comfortable having more players than they've run in a Tom Thibodeau era. There's one for the Tom Thibodeau jar. But there's a reason I mentioned that, because of the fact that I don't foresee them having 12 players I don't think they're going to have an 11-man lineup with the 12th guy being the 12th man out. It feels like there's going to be some contraction here.
Well,
it just does.
I look at it. So I'm always going to be of the default. Listen, you're the same guy who started a free agency live stream 3 years ago talking about Bradley Beal, which I will never forget for as long as I live. You're always thinking 18 steps ahead, and that's why you're you. I'm thinking more in terms of, all right, if this is the reality and there is no other move, what are we looking at? Right now, we're looking at 9 guys who I think are guaranteed rotation spots. In the 5 starters who started 96 games last year, and then Mitchell Robinson, Yabusele, Jordan Clarkson, and Deuce McBride off the bench. That said, even if a new coach comes in here and drastically limits all the minutes of those 5 starters to the point where you got OG and McCall and Brunson and Cat playing, 33 minutes a night, right? And he dips that whether it's Deuce as a starter, whether it's Hart as a starter, whether it's Mitch as a starter, whoever the 5th starter is. Let's say that person, is playing about, 24, 25 minutes. Even still, if those are your numbers, and I promise we're going to get to the Milwaukee stuff shortly. Let's go 32 times 4 plus another, I'm going to lowball it at 26. That's 154 minutes. There are 254 minutes available, or 240 minutes available in an NBA game. So that leaves 86 minutes left for their 4 guys off the bench. Again, in this scenario, it's Yabusele, Clarkson, and then pick whichever 2 guys don't start. 22 minutes a pop. That's about the least amount that you can. You're giving me a look, and you're right to give me a look. You're right to give me a look. But look, the arrows are pointing in a direction. We could speculate on what that direction might be. I'm just gonna say, as of right now, and I'll even take it a step further. We said last night after the Jordan Clarkson signing, I said at least, that it was a very clear indication that they were going, all right, we are our best quality last year was our offense. Why do we lose? Why do we fail to succeed in the playoffs? Yeah, our defense wasn't great, but our offense fell off a cliff. Starting January 1st until the end of the year, we were a league average offense. There is no universe, I'm talking as the front office, where we are going to win a blessed thing if we don't go from a league average offense, which we were over the second half of last year, to at least a top 5 offense, and if not a top 2 or a top 3 offense. Son Clarkson, and now, I'm not saying Yabusele can't defend at all, but this is an offense-first player. They are very clearly leaning into this. So if that is the direction they're going to go, and if, in fact, they hire Mike Brown as the head coach, which there's a lot of indications that that is the direction that they are going to go, although some very carefully worded tweets by some of the beat guys earlier today, which Knicks PR is doing a lot of work to make sure that everybody still feels like this process is ongoing. We haven't hired anybody yet. Taylor Jenkins is still being considered, yada, yada. Let's assume it's Mike Brown. Mike Brown had the Kings during his time there running like the wind. And by the way, what team did just beat the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals? The Indiana Pacers. What did the Pacers do better than anyone? Ran you off the freaking court. I don't know on a roster. What?
We're going to talk about the Pacers in a second. But
we are going to talk about the Pacers. I don't know on a roster built around Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, to say nothing of some of the other folks that I don't know if that's necessarily how they want to play. I don't know if you could feasibly become any version of a run and gun team, but if you were going to try to lean more into that direction, this would be the way to do it. Sign a bunch of guys who are offense first guys and have yourself go a legit 9 deep where every one of those players brings some sort of special offensive skill to the table. And I'm including Mitchell Robinson in that because he's the best offensive rebounder in the sport. So you might be right. The smart money would probably say that you are right. I'm just trying to give the other side of the argument that if this is it, I could see this being the direction that they are going and it making some sense. That's all. I know. Look, you're not wrong to think the way you're thinking, but I just want to put out there that there's another side to the coin, which it could be.
Well, so let's stop there for a second, because let's transition to the next topic, which is Miles Turner signing with the Bucks.
By virtue of?
Well, so that's the thing. At first, I went on Cats and Shoot, and I think I even said it on an episode of Cream, where I was like, Miles Turner to the Bucks makes a whole lot of sense. He replaces a lot of what Brook Lopez would do, but you'd have to make it a 3-team sign and trade where you're moving Portis out to a team and you're moving Connaughton to another team, but you can make the math work. And instead, the Bucks did the it's unprecedented, but the improbable thing.
It is unprecedented.
It's unprecedented from a total comp standpoint, but it's shocking. Like if you had seen the looks on our faces right before we went live of just, oh my God, the Bucks just stretched and waived Damian Lillard to create the space necessary to get Miles Turner. Shocking. And this of course takes Giannis out of the conversation right now, which I think is productive. Yes.
It is shocking, and the looks on our face were what they were. It's the same look I'm sure every NBA fan had on their face when they saw that news, similar to the look we all had on our faces when the Luka news hit, although that was actually more bewilderment because we didn't think it was real. It's actually really not shocking if you think about it for a second, because all in the ether for weeks, if not months now, it was, oh, is this the summer? Like, obviously now Dame Lillard has torn his ACL. This is the summer that Giannis is going to ask out. And then we got some kind of pushback on that. Giannis went on some podcasts and said some things, and he said some tweets and yada, yada, yada. And yet, what resurfaces over the last 24 to 48 hours? Oh, Giannis is looking at what the Bucks are doing. Giannis is looking at what moves the Bucks are going to make this summer. Yesterday, very uninspiring. Bring back Aaron Trent Jr., bring back Taurean Prince, bring back Bobby Portis. That was the day before. But anyway, if the Bucks were looking at two options, and one of those options did not include Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the other option included Giannis Antetokounmpo, they made it very clear with the Jrue Holiday trade. They made it very clear with the original Dame Lillard trade that they were always going to choose option A, the option that includes Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I think what the Bucks have done is they gave themselves at least another year with Giannis happily on their roster. And my inference from this is that if they didn't figure out a way to do something of this grand scale, Giannis was going to ask out not next summer, not at the trade deadline, but like tomorrow or the day after that. That's how I read it.
Sure. I think he's going to stay for the full season.
Yeah, right. Now that they've done this, yes,
absolutely. And this is Milwaukee saying, we'll try to get through this season, and then next year we'll figure it out, because you saw what Denver just did with their 2032 first with Jokic, saying we're going to get you help and we're going to add to the core, and our goal is to extend you. But we just got a report from Chris Haynes saying the Bucks star Giannis Antetokounmpo is not pleased with the decision to waive Damian Lillard. And so here's just what I want to say.
Well, hold on. Right? This could be read one of two ways. Say what you're going to say.
Okay. All I'm saying, because I've tried to do the depth chart with everything with the Knicks, and when I look at it, right, it is very heavy on bigs and heavy on guards and lighter on wings. Like, could you run a 10-man rotation? If what you were saying is that it's purely messaging and you stick with the starting five that you had last year, and you got Clarkson, Deuce, Dadier, Yabu, and Mitch off the bench, like, sure, you could do that. But there's just something about this feels like a glut. And I completely understand the other factor, which is if the Knicks even tried to consolidate salary to getting someone like Giannis, they don't necessarily have the assets to do that. This morning, things felt very weird to me. I can't quite put a finger on it, but the reason things felt weird to me was, why is there a holdup on a lot of different things? You know, like, what was stopping Yabusele? What was stopping Horford? What is stopping Horford? It feels like there was a big domino that needed to fall, that a lot of folks in the NBA knew about, that we weren't necessarily privy to. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's Giannis and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not the case.
What other domino is there?
But that's the thing. Well, it could be.
It's not LeBron. I don't think it's LeBron.
It usually starts at the top and works its way down. I agree. But it's kind of like, well, was the Yabusele decision, was that, hey, we're making a move behind the scenes, or purely these are the offers? Because he could have waited it out to see what's going on. All I'm wondering here is there a consolidation move? Is it related to Giannis in any way possible? Because we've gone over what the salaries look like essentially for Giannis, because we know what the math is. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at a log jammed roster that is so close to the second apron that something doesn't add up to me. It doesn't feel right. Yes, it can work, but I don't think it's quite as seamless. I just don't. I think something is afoot. It's not passing the smell test to me. And I'm not saying it's a Giannis thing even. It's just, as we are sitting here, everything works, but it doesn't. Like, you have to be so creative here, and it feels like there's something you can do to consolidate. I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel it in my bones that something isn't sitting here right.
Something has been amiss the last few days. You're absolutely right about that. I don't know that I want to push back on the whatever your phrasing of the roster. Like, you have a 5 in Mitch, and then you have 2 4-5s, right? In Cat and Yabusele. So between those 3 players, you're kind of covered at the 4 and the 5, with probably a few minutes left over for some smaller lineups, right? Where OG's at the 4 or whoever's at the 4. But those cover you at the 4 and the 5, probably. And then you do have a lot of guards. You have Clarkson, you have Deuce McBride, and you have Jalen Brunson. And those guys are all of those guys can play together for certain periods of time. You could have Brunson play with Clarkson. You have Brunson play with Deuce. You could have Deuce play with Clarkson, right? And then you're filling in the middle with the three wings, OG, McCall, and Josh Hart. To me, that's not, I don't know. I don't look at that as I don't look at that as that crazy. It's a lineup that actually has a fair bit of versatility. I'm not disputing anything you're saying. I'm just trying to come at it from the other side.
I get it.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
All.
And you can find ways to make it work. Like, for example, but see, this is then where it gets challenging. Okay, so you're changing up your starting five a bit, right? How are you doing that?
Well, not guaranteed yet. You might.
But let's talk it through, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Imagine going back to the drawing board of the same starting five that was used for the majority of last season. Okay. If that is not working for you, if that is something that you need to change, what is the only move that really makes sense? It's moving Hart out of the starting lineup, because you're not moving Brunson or Cat.
Yes.
You're not moving Bridges, and you're not moving Anunoby. So it's really moving Hart out. Okay, if you're moving Hart out, what are the fungible pieces? If you're moving Hart out, are you moving Mitchell Robinson in? If you're moving Mitchell Robinson in, then you are eliminating the Cat maximization at the 5 on a consistent basis, because you're basically saying we've got a guy in the dunker spot, a non-shooter, where we can put a center on him. We can't necessarily put a guard on him, but it gets trickier to do. And now Cat has to work as more of a 4 on the offensive side. Are we in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's the thought of, well, what if you swap Hart out and you move Deuce in? And you could absolutely do that. But then my question is, you really don't have like we could talk about Dadier. And again, I still see him as a piece that they can use moving forward, but it feels clunkier as like the Josh Hart in that 2-3, like in that 2-guard spot. You know what I mean? Like I know we talk about how he plays, but he's a guard who plays more like a forward and less like a guard.
Plays like a center.
Right. So now we're like, you've got length absolutely with Hart and Dadier off the bench. But then you've got Hart and Robinson likely seeing a lot of time together, which we know from the past wasn't the most pleasurable experience, but it existed.
Wait, Hart and who?
Hart and Robinson, because they're both coming off the bench now. So now you have to stagger your minutes.
I got to at least jump in.
Significantly.
The numbers were good with those guys together,
but they minimize the spacing impact that you could have at the same time. And the numbers that you're talking about were best with Deuce and with Mitch.
We're going far afoul of this, which is why I always go back to spacing is obviously important. Clearly it was important, but it just if you there are limits to this stuff. Like, for instance, when it was Hart and Robinson and I forgot his name for a sec, Precious Chichua, we all wanted to tear our eyes out, rightly so. But just because you do have two technical non-shooters on the floor, it is not a death knell to offensive success. It's how do you play? What else are you doing? I'm just saying that, to me, I'm not looking at that as like a definitive, they're definitely going to make a trade because now we have Hart and Robinson coming off the bench, basically.
I'm not calling it a death knell. I'm just saying that if you want to maximize the spacing on your roster, you're
yeah.
not doing that. And that was a main factor. So it's not, I'm not sitting here and saying, Jonathan Macri, there is absolutely 100% a trade coming. But the pieces, the way that everything is lining up financially, the way that the signings are lining up, the minutes crunch, the fit, all of those things have me leaning towards. And also when we talk about the lack of extensions that have been on the table,
well,
there are a lot of pieces here that feel like they are adding up to something where if you wanted to consolidate, there's an avenue to do that. And then when you see, even if it's not the player we're talking about, but when you see Giannis say, hey, or at least be reported as, I'm not happy with the fact that you made this big trade only to waive Damian Lillard and use that money to sign a center who spaces the floor for me, but doesn't assist me in terms of a high usage rate. I would be upset too. I would be saying, where are you going with this? The Bucks have now access to their full non-taxpayer mid-level exception. But what's surprising to me with that is, who are you using to sign with that? Because you have now seen an entire free agency play out. It's gotten late early with a lot of these free agents. The market is not very strong right now. Can we agree on that? So now you have to trade into. You have to find an asset to acquire, or you basically have to use your non-taxpayer mid-level exception to acquire a player in a trade, right? Like that's what you have to do if you're Milwaukee. So if it's not a free agent, it's got to be acquiring a player, and that player has to be good, which means you have to give up an asset that you don't really have, because the only assets that the Bucks have are late firsts, and that's not the type of player that you bring in that you don't use that asset for a non-taxpayer mid-level exception type player. You just don't. So I don't know what the Bucks are doing here. I understand how they're operating, but this feels like a move that you would make before you blow it up in some capacity, and you can't be bad because another team owns your pick. So you're just electing to be mid for the next few years and ride it out. And then you get to your pick access or finding ways to trade for your pick down the line. I don't understand what Milwaukee's doing.
So, it's a few things. I don't think the Bucks, based on all the reporting that has happened over the years, I don't think the Bucks checked in with Giannis and be like, "Hey, we got Turner that we could sign, but we're not gonna we have to waive Dame," and like made Giannis give them the okay. I don't think they did that. That said, the notion that on the assumption that the Bucks did not do this Dame Turner thing as a precursor to Giannis leaving, and they know Giannis wants to be out, and this is them preparing for Giannis to ask out and for them to make that trade. I think I would be shocked if they did this, the Turner thing and the Dame thing, without at least having some internal belief that this was going to aid in their quest to keep Giannis happy. So then we get the tweet from Chris Haynes. I'm not going to question Chris Haynes' reporting. I would never do that. Giannis has always been very cognizant of his public image, and I do think it's genuine. I think he cares about being like a good guy and the whole thing. Is it not something that you would want to put out there for the world to hear and consume? That, boy, they did my teammate dirty, as opposed to what everyone was thinking when they signed Turner and they waived Dame to do it. Like, oh man, look at the extent, look at the lengths that they are going to keep Giannis happy and keep Giannis in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. The perfect thing to counter that narrative is exactly what Chris Haynes just tweeted out, which is that Giannis is not happy. Now, maybe he's actually not happy, and maybe there's going to be a trade demand coming in the near future. However, in my experience, maybe I'm missing something. When there's a trade demand that comes down, it's not usually preceded by like, oh, so-and-so isn't happy. Like, we don't usually get that this person's not happy first, and then we get the trade demand. We just get the trade demand. The fact that we have not gotten that yet says to me, I am not assuming that a Giannis trade demand is coming. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm assuming. I think this was a nice little bit of PR by Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's what I read it as.
Could be, but I just don't see a path for him in Milwaukee. Like, does this advance them further?
Does it advance them further in this Eastern Conference? Could Milwaukee look at themselves? Here, let's pull up the Bucks roster right now. Could they look at themselves and make themselves make a good faith argument that they have a chance to come out of these? So right now, you would project their starting five to be Miles Turner, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyle Kuzma at the 3. Let's go with Gary Trent Jr. at the 2, and I guess Michael Porter Jr. at the 1, although as you just stated, they have opened up their non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And if you do want to look at the free agent market, like Dennis Schroeder hasn't signed yet. Like Malcolm Brogdon is out there. He was a former Buck. He has obviously experience playing with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Chris Paul is still out there, although I know it's been rumored that he's deciding between the Lakers and Clippers. There are a couple of players out there. I mean, Russell Westbrook. I mean, I don't know if that would be the type of thing that would entice Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, there are some players out there who could ostensibly play the point guard position. Quentin Grimes. If they use their entire non-taxpayer mid-level exception to make a restricted or to make a offer sheet to Quentin Grimes, would Philadelphia match that? I don't know. There's only one way to find out. So, like,
yes, of course they would. They just
think they would
lost Yabusele. They're not gonna. Yeah, I
okay.
would be shocked.
They probably would. And then, okay, let's just keep going with the Bucks roster. Off the bench, assuming again you start Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. Off the bench, you got Bobby Portis, you have Taurean Prince, and you got maybe AJ Green, although they have to bring him back. It's not a whole lot, and they have some other guys that they have cap holds on, obviously. Jericho Sims probably being the most prominent one. I agree with you. It's not a great roster. Even with Miles Turner. If Miles Turner is your second best player, your team is probably not that great. And right now, Miles Turner is their second best player. But they still have that taxpayer, which again, as you pointed out, they could use as a trade exception. So maybe we're in a TBD type of situation. I don't know. I know I'm not changing your mind.
Giannis himself. Did you see what he tweeted?
I didn't see what he tweeted. What did he tweet?
Yeah. He tweeted mood with a 100 emoji and a photo of himself. And the caption in the photo is, "I don't know what's going on right now, man." You're not on the same page with your star if you're Milwaukee? That's not good.
I would just be shocked. That would be gross mismanagement.
But here they are. So one of two things is the case, right? We're either saying that Giannis is lying, or that the Bucks went out and did this and completely blindsided him, right? It's one of those two things.
You're
either
right.
They were on the same page or they weren't. So either he's lying about what's happening and this is all posturing to get out.
Wait, you mean lying about how he feels?
He's saying, "I don't know what's going on right now, man."
That's what he tweeted out.
Right. So either that's true and he has no idea what's happening, and that is an indictment perhaps on the Bucks in terms of what their planning was for how they build he's not celebrating this unless
Publicly.
The only thing we're saying is he could, or unless you're reading it as mood 100, like, "I know what's going on right now, but I'm happy about it." That's another option. Or you're reading it as like, what are they doing to my team? How are they, like, again, they've traded all of that they traded Drew Holiday and future picks for 2 seasons of Damian Lillard. And now they just stretched him to create a signing for Miles Turner and the opportunity to sign someone or acquire someone with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
You're talking about a consolidation trade, obviously, with an eye on Giannis. I do just want to put it out there. I don't know that there is another consolidation trade possibility out there that would make sense. I think if there is a consolidation trade coming, it would have to be Giannis, because just looking at the league, and obviously if it's a consolidation trade, you're talking about acquiring a player with a very large salary.
Mm-hmm.
Like scrolling through, player. I mean, I'll come back to. There's one name that Devin Booker. They're stop dreaming about that. They're negotiating an extension. He's not going anywhere. They're not doing Kawhi Leonard. They're not taking on Kawhi Leonard. There's
also a world where if we're
I
looking at,
I don't see Markkanen
No, I agree. If we're looking at math and we're trying to figure out how do you get from where you're at to where you need to be, if it were essentially the heavy lifting done by OG and Mitch, then perhaps a reason you tell Bridges not to sign an extension is, hey, we need to figure out where the numbers shake out with the second apron next year and the year after that. So hold off on signing an extension because we might need you to play ball here. That's another angle. Because the other way, if you had to move Bridges, now you're moving Bridges and Hart and Robinson in order to get Giannis, just for the math to work. So if it's OG and Mitch, you ignore you basically say, hey, we're good on bigs. We've got spacing around Giannis. We've got a dive man in Huck Porty. That sort of works there. And then you're basically saying, we like Bridges. We keep him. We find a way to then insulate ourselves defensively. Who do we bump up to that fifth starter spot? Maybe it's Deuce. Maybe you find a veteran who's saying, hell yeah, I sign up, but I probably would put Deuce above that veteran because I don't know who it is. Then you bring back Landry Shamet, sort of thing. That's essentially how I would see it playing out. But that's really it. Like, other than that, I can't quite figure it out. And it doesn't necessarily mean Mikal's gone. It's just, how do you make the math work moving forward? And he's someone who might be able to cooperate with you.
You know what they should do? If the Pacers are going to blow it up now, they should trade for Pascal Siakam.
I kid. So the Kings just traded Valanciunas to the Nuggets for Dario Saric.
What did the Nuggets have to include to pull that off?
I think it was probably a 1-for-1 swap because both are expiring salary. I believe the last year Valanciunas' deal is non-guaranteed. So Denver's taking on more money, which means that they would be hard capped at the first apron, which they can do. That's fine because they're using the non-taxpayer mid-level exception regardless. The question is, are they trading for Valanciunas into their non-taxpayer mid-level exception and generating a TPE, or are they just doing the swap 1-for-1 and then still have access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception? And now here's Gary Harris with a 2-year deal to the Bucks with a player option on the second season. So that would mean, it depends on.
It's got to be at the minimum.
Unless it isn't. Unless they have found a way to. Unless they found a way to insulate with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception.
If they gave Gary Harris
the
more
full
than
one.
Mid-level, or sorry,
well, no, I think they will. I don't know.
I think Gary Harris is a minimum player. Okay. Try to think if there's anything else we should talk. Look, I gotta tell you, I'm a lot more excited about this team today than I was 24 hours ago. I like that they are leaning into a direction. As my daughter is asking me, what's up, Isabel? You want paper? Okay. I'm happy they're leaning into a direction. Honestly, I'm happy that the direction is offense, because I think, look, as I say that, trust me, everybody, I am aware that the team with the greatest defense in modern NBA history just won the title. I am fully aware of that. The notion that you could go out and replicate even 75% of what the Thunder did in assembling that defensive infrastructure is crazy talk. I just don't think it's realistic. I think credit to them in building that roster where you have a guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who is your worst defender in your starting lineup, and he has received all defense votes or defensive player of the year votes in like 2 of the last 3 seasons. That is I just don't think that's realistic to try to replicate that. Doesn't mean you give up on defending. And again, good luck to the next head coach. But I do think there is something to be said for the fact that if you have some talented defenders on your roster and you have guys whose intentions are in the right place and you have guys who are able to follow and execute a scheme, hello, Karl Anthony Towns, you can be a league average defense, and maybe, and if you really do have some talent, you could maybe even sniff being a top 10. I am much happier that the Knicks are going in the direction with we're going to try again, because we tried last year and it kind of worked for a little while and it didn't work. Be the best offense in the league and be the 13th or 14th best defense. I like that path. I'm happy with that path. And I think the key is, can you build an offense that is not only regular season great, but is sustainable in the postseason? And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty hopeful. I know it didn't really work out that way last postseason, but I'm hopeful.
Last thing I'll say on this at the moment is, even if the Knicks don't, like, let's say the Bucks say we're running it back no matter what, we're not doing the move, we're keeping it. We're keeping Giannis. That's it. The way that the Knicks have still set themselves up to trade at least next year and have that opportunity, that is important. But then it comes down to the extensions we talked about with Bridges and with Robinson and how they go about it. If they went through, kept this core as is, as we see it, great. Like I said, they can make it work financially. They can get Kevin McCullough Jr. and they can sign one of their players to a rookie exception and one of the players they've drafted, and that works just fine. That's great. I'd be totally content with that. I just know that there are a lot of players who need time, and maybe it works itself out with an injury or two. And there are a lot of you need a coach who emphasizes ball movement, creation, buy-in.
You can just stop.
You need a coach.
You need a coach.
Sure, but there's a difference between you or me coaching it and maybe like Mike Brown or someone else. But with that said, the Knicks are putting themselves into a position where, and we said this on the Giannis cap or no cap, the Knicks are one off season away from offering a substantially better package for Giannis Antetokounmpo, because they would have access to their 2026 first round pick. They could trade the draft rights after the draft, and they would have access to the 2033 unprotected pick, which they do not have, and they could do swaps if they wanted to as well. So there are ways for them to go about this. It's just, if it's not going to be now, you've got a team lurking, waiting for this to happen. Then you've got 1 year of team control left with Giannis. To me, this is basically the Knicks saying, we'd love him now. If we can't get him now, we can wait, because we've got an even better team. This team right now has more talent than last year's team.
I'm utterly fascinated by the Bucks thing, because one of us is going to be right. Either Giannis is going to play out this season, and we're going to look.
I think he will. I think he will play out this season. To be clear,
you do. Okay, I thought that was okay.
I'm saying I don't know what they're doing, and it feels like they're trying to make something out of nothing, and their nothing is truly nothing. Like, you get what you pay for, and even if you throw his tweet aside and he's happy and content, but whatever it is, the numbers, I get it. They can, like I said, they can still make all of this work and fill out the bottom end of their roster. They can do that. They can consolidate in another way. They could change one player for another. They can do all of this. It's just a question of, is he going to be happy? But also, are the Bucks going to move him? At the end of the day, this year, with the package the Knicks can offer, it's not nearly as good as other teams. And I would, based on what I said before with the cap or no cap, based on here, I would imagine Giannis is not traded this year, but that the Knicks will be ready and waiting when that time comes, where merely it's an option or a stronger option. Yeah. And right now, my only question is there a different consolidation move, or are they trying to figure out a way to balance the roster in a different way that helps them? But the one thing we can predict is, if they do not get Giannis this year, which, again, we're both saying, right, that we feel like that is unlikely, that next year would be a likelier scenario. Can we agree with that?
Yep.
It would mean that next year, the Knicks need to plan accordingly so that they are not over the second apron, because they would need to aggregate salary in some fashion, which means with a lower salary cap, only going to 7% higher instead of the 10%, they need to be a little bit more fungible with the numbers that they've got.
Very fair. This was good. I'm happy. I think we hit on all the things. Let's get to the super chats before we get out of here. I think we got about a dozen in the hopper. Joel Vargas starts us off. The new French prince has arrived. He's an exciting player. He's an exciting guy to think about. I usually go right to cleaning the glass for this stuff. I'm pulling him up right now. If I could hold on, it shouldn't be that hard to find. So last year, Yabusele, if you're comparing him with other bigs across the league, 70th percentile for efficiency per cleaning the glass, 123.6 points per 100 shot attempts. That's a really nice number. Past it, 11.5% assist percentage. That's a nice little number. And then if you're looking for where his shots come from, he took nearly half of his shots last year, 44% of his shots from behind the arc. 12% of those came from about a quarter of those threes came from the corner. 3/4 came from above the break. And so he is definitely a long range bomber. And from three on the year, 39%. And the best thing about that number, he was 40% on above the breaks. So that's a really, really encouraging sign. Really good at the rim, 71% at the rim, not so hot in the mid range. But again, this is a guy that, at least last year, did not take a ton of mid-range shots. Only 13% of his shots came from the mid-range. So again, he's at the rim and he is behind the arc and specifically above the break. Interesting. Again, I know you're always on the corner threes. Second straight signing here, a guy who shoots a lot above the break. Again, he can shoot from the corners, but Yabusele shot. But then again, how much of that was Philly last year where it's like they didn't have anybody.
Yeah, I also want to be clear about something. Just because the Knicks emphasize corner threes, it doesn't mean every single player needs to do it. It's the Knicks know who their best corner three shooters are. It's OG, it's Mikal, it's Deuce. You need to still find guys to operate above the break, and that's where Cat often shoots from. He does not shoot from the corners. So this is a good Cat's out. We've got cat insurance. You need pet insurance. It's important for all pet owners. They know.
To me, one of the main things that made the Indiana Pacers so dangerous is they had so many guys who could pull up from behind the arc above the break. It wasn't just the corners. And I do not mind trying to replicate that strategy. Okay. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say one other thing is that we talked about how Yabusele operated on a bad team. The true shooting percentage of his teammates last season, we know because they were Philly was a bad team. It was the 34th percentile. So the players around him were not doing well. And I wonder in a more structured system with a winning team, if you see the best characteristics of Yabusele, you see more open shots because you have more threats offensively and you create more and you have better looks than what you had before. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
We'll find out. Thanks, Joel, for starting us off. Next up, Robert Randolph. Is this? No, this is not the Robert Randolph. There's no way this is the Robert Randolph. Has he ever super chatted before? I don't. If he has, I don't remember it.
Hey, this is a place you come to for Knicks live streaming, so why not? Welcome, Robert.
I know he's shouted out Knicks Film School in the past, so I know he knows who we are. Is this the real Robert? Listen, will the real Robert Randolph please stand up? Gerschon has added depth for when we announce the big trade later today or tomorrow. Well, someone's been watching your cap or no caps, Jeremy.
Again, I'll still be surprised if Giannis is a Knick this season. The following year, that's where I think it would be more likely.
In the last 6 months, Luka Doncic has been traded and Damian Lillard got waived in stretch. Nothing will surprise me. Thank you, Robert Randolph. Shout out to the family band. Next up, Drew P. Great deal. Do you consider LeBron or signing Dame? Yeah, we should probably. LeBron, I don't think is getting traded. I don't think LeBron's getting traded. I think you're forecasting for next year as far as LeBron's potential unhappiness. Although if the Lakers don't sign a freaking center, which it would appear to be DeAndre Ayton now, good luck with that. As for where Dame is signing, I think there's already a report out there noting how I think it was from Mark Spears, noting how Dame is not necessarily heartbroken by this move. It's been a real challenge being away from his family. His family is on the West Coast. Over the last couple of years, I would guess that Damian Lillard is going to sign somewhere closer to home. And also on a team with Jalen Brunson already on it. he's going to be spending pretty much the rest of the year rehabbing. Is he really going to want to do? I mean, look, never say never. Never say never. I've been talking now for 2 straight live streams about how the Knicks are going all in on offense. Well, Damian Lillard is a pretty good offensive player. I would just be shocked if he came to a team with Jalen Brunson.
Well, he's also torn his Achilles. So what's he doing other than occupying a roster spot that
he's not? Yeah,
someone else?
Yeah.
So I would not. I would not want him on the Knicks.
And oh, by the way, they functionally aren't even allowed to sign him this year, right? Because of his salary last season.
Well, no. So here's
or that changes because he was waived.
It changes. So the what I learned, someone in the know, and then this was later confirmed, is that the buyout rules with the salary being above the non-taxpayer mid-level exception are different in season than out of season. Out of season, anything goes. In season, you cannot sign that player. So the Knicks could do it, but also it doesn't make sense. I think also to your point of the West Coast, like I'm just trying to think of a team that might need a point guard. Like if Chris Paul goes to the Suns, then the Clippers could use perhaps Damian Lillard for when the postseason, comes about, if he's healthy enough to doing it. But maybe that's not what he wants. Maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe he signs in healthy and gets his wish there. Maybe maybe he goes to Houston. If they need a backup, but it doesn't really matter because he's not a factor for the regular season.
Either way, functionally right now, the Knicks would not be able to sign him and stay under the second apron. They would have to make another move of some kind. All right. Thanks, Drew. Hudsu, I'm happy on Turner. Puts a halt on the Pacers. We should probably spend a second on that. Huge hit on their offense. I really like our bench now. Go bring in Mike Brown and let's have fun. Look, the Pacers got to have the most magical non-championship winning season that a professional sports franchise has had, I don't know, this century. I can't remember one that's comparable. Since the 99 Knicks. What has now transpired between the Halliburton injury and losing Turner, and now Pacers fans are kind of going to be stuck looking around and be like, wait a minute. We were just the best story in the NBA, the best story the NBA has seen in years. And now we've lost one player for the year, and our, I don't know, third most important player, fourth most important player, massively important player to what they do. And we didn't get anything back. And by the way, the reason why you lost him, and I could say and this reporting has already come out. I want to, the reports that you read saying Turner wanted to be back in Indiana, and this had everything to do with the Pacers ownership not wanting to pay the tax next season because they knew they were not going to be able to compete for a championship. That is absolutely accurate. Miles Turner wanted to be back in Indiana, and this is because their owners are cheap. And so now if you're a Pacer fan, you got to have this magical run, and now you have to live with the reality that, yeah, you know what? We are just a small market franchise, and we do have constraints that the big boys don't have. And in this instance, they were not able to overcome that. So, sucks for them.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I don't know if it comes down to they didn't want to pay the tax, but history is on your side, to be clear.
He wanted to be there, and they did not want to pay him what he was worth. That's the reality.
Did he want to be there?
From what I've heard, yes.
Miles Turner wanted to stay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that's for the reporting.
It could be. I know. I also know he's been traded to 29 other teams.
I know.
Times. So it's possible. But he also found a better situation, assuming Giannis stays, for a team that can win when your best player Halliburton's out. But this Achilles injury, and if we want to say frugality as well, is really going to harm the Pacers, because now they're looking at a scenario where Siakam's 33 years old in the 2027 playoffs, and they don't have and they need to figure out a way to get a starter, a center who can create that much offense or do something dynamic. And they just don't have that.
No, they don't.
And perhaps that's why they tendered a qualifying offer to Isaiah Jackson. Maybe they knew that Turner wasn't going to come back, or maybe to your point, they just didn't want to spend the money to bring him back, and now they have some coverage.
Chris Haynes going on NBA TV saying that Giannis didn't like how it was handled, meaning the Damian Lillard wave and stretch. So,
yep.
Didn't like how it was handled, to me reads different than didn't like the moves. But
and I should add the image that he had. I was mistaken. It's of Brook Lopez, not of Giannis, but the point still stands regardless of what that was. But again, I think he's still a buck this year.
Thanks, Hush. Next up, Mr. McBagels. Can Yabusele in New York reach Olympic levels of skill? I mean, he's an incredibly skilled player. He's an incredibly skilled player. I think you saw that skill on full display last year in Philadelphia. I think the numbers tell you that he's an incredibly skilled player. You don't shoot 40% from deep or 39% from deep and have one of the more efficient big man seasons in the league, which he just did, if you're not skilled. So, yeah.
Jake Fisher, by the way, tweeted, "There's certainly more dust to settle from Miles Turner landing in Milwaukee, as ESPN reports. I'm being told the big man wanted to remain at the Pacers, who he helped lead to the finals, but Indiana's offer for Turner never truly exceeded the $3 or $60 million range," which would then point to what you were saying in terms of the Pacers cheapening out.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll see what happens. Moving forward.
In regards to, just very quickly, in regards to the idea of Yabusele reaching Olympic levels of skill, hopefully, but we have seen another player on Les Bleus, in Evan Fournier, who did not quite reach the pinnacle of his international success, with the Knicks as he did internationally. So I think Yabusele, a different role, different player, all that, but I think he can be a really great addition.
Thanks, Mr. McBagels. Next up, Jason. What's going on, Jason? Disagree with Jeremy. It's not a logjam, it's depth.
That's fine. Free to disagree. I mean, again, like I said, these things often have a way of working themselves out. Having versatility, having different options. If you just kept this team, I would be more than happy with it. You just need to figure out, how are you extending Bridges? How are you extending Robinson? And the truth is, you don't have to extend them right now, because you can wait to extend them later on. Like Mikal Bridges could not have an extension and then wait until draft night next year, theoretically, and sign an extension then when the numbers get squishier. With Mitch, it's a little different because the fact that he's a big and he's had those injuries, he might want that long-term security, but you also probably want more salary to move if you were to make that type of trade to get Giannis. So I mean, I could see them extending Mitch and not extending Bridges. But I hear you, Jason. If like, it's good to have depth, but there are going to be some players naturally who are saying, I don't have room here. If that's the case, usually it works its way out with an injury or someone not excelling and the next man up coming and stepping in for them. So I wouldn't be upset with the team that we have. I'd be happy.
Again, a lot of mouths to feed. Thanks, Jason. Hazoo, I think Yabu might start for us. Big wings galore. I would be surprised.
I'd be stunned.
Also,
he's not a wing. He's a big. Just full stop.
Yeah.
I know he's like 6'9", but that man qualifies as a big.
Oh, and Benji's tweet just now reminded me of this. He has some shit to him.
He's got that dog in him.
He's got that dog.
He's got Le Chien in him.
I didn't know you knew so much French.
I took it for like 7 years, dude. Yeah.
I took Latin for 4 yeyears. I couldn't tell you.
I took Latin for 3 years. I forgot almost all of it. I get it.
Agricola, agricolum, agrico.
I just know from my Latin, Caecilius est in horto, which is that he's in the garden. That's it.
Fantastic.
Good for Caecilius.
Thanks, Hush, for inspiring that conversation. Next up, Debo. What's going on, Debo? I love the Clarkson and Yabu signings that fill clear needs at a low cost. I love our depth. I like our depth, but very interesting to see if consolidation trade occurs. The Milwaukee situation with the Giannis watch is fascinating. Yeah, and like, look, just because I just looked at the salaries and I didn't see anyone else out there that would seem to me to be a likely candidate for a consolidation trade does not mean that there's not someone out there. Again, this is the NBA. where nobody sees stuff coming. And, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Thanks, Debo. Kevin Danishevsky. Wow. Per New York Knicks. Per New York Knicks? I think this means Mitch is either traded or starting next year. Smart to avoid Mitch Hart, but I do worry about health. Love Yabu, though. I don't know that I'm reading this as Mitch getting traded or that's such a weird thing. So he's either going to be gone or he's going to be starting.
There's got to be a middle ground there. It can't be that binary. I'm with you.
I don't know. I mean, maybe crazy last words, but like, I think the coach is going to have a lot of say, and they don't have a coach right now. So we'll see.
I also don't think that the difference should be he's either traded or starting. I think it should be he's either extended or he's traded.
That makes more sense to me.
The Bridges situation, if you want to make that more fluid, I can get behind that. The Mitch one, especially if we're talking about Giannis and the way we're talking about him, you need salary. That Mitch makes sense as a salary move.
Hold on. How did I miss this?
What?
Oh, never mind. I was scrolling Twitter and I saw a fake account. Thanks, Kev. Don't get duped by fake accounts, folks. Patrick Gallagher, what's going on? Here's a trade. Knicks get Giannis and Herb Jones. I can't wait to see how this one ends up. Milwaukee gets Zion and Mikal Bridges. The Pels get Cat and Deuce. Who says no? Thanks for years of great content. Go Knicks. You're welcome. Who says no? The Bucks, for starters.
Yes.
Because they're losing one of the three best players in the world, and they're getting back a guy who doesn't play basketball. And the Pels... do the Pels say no? They're giving... Who are they giving up? They're giving up Herb Jones and Zion, and they're getting Cat. I think the Pels say no also to this.
I mean, the Pels are irrational actors, as we've seen, so who knows? But I would say here's...
Well, they also have 1,000 centers now, so I
that's true.
Say no.
Crazy thought here. I know that might get some pushback on this. I think the Knicks say no. And I think the reason the Knicks say no is because the Knicks would rather create a world where they wait another year and try to move pieces for Giannis, where they keep Cat and Bridges.
I don't think the Knicks say no to this.
No, I get it, but I understand what you're saying. But it's also, how do you create the best version of your team?
Sure,
it's finding Giannis, Cat, and Brunson. Being able to retain those three guys, it's pretty damn good. And they fit seamlessly. That's why. And I understand the love for Herb Jones. I really like him too. But just pointing that out there.
All right. Next up. Thank you, Patrick. Juanon, no Bridges, Mitch extension, smoke. Why? Wonder if Dumars likes Bridges. Joe Dumars, of course, is now running the operations with New Orleans because the taxpayer mid-level, is that what? Yeah, taxpayer mid-level money lines up, and we know he's available. I don't know who he's talking about.
He's saying the non-taxpayer mid. I don't understand. The taxpayer mid-level money lines up, and we know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Just a non-Giannis idea that is also a Giannis idea. # fire Bridges. I'm not reading too much yet into the lack of smoke about a Bridges extension. I'm definitely not reading anything into a no Mitch extension because I think that's the sort of extension that happens later in the summer. The Bridges no extension smoke so far. I don't know. We didn't get any Turner extension smoke or new contract smoke, and now he just got traded. Or sorry, he just signed with somebody else.
But he could have extended earlier. The Pacers just weren't willing to go there.
Yeah, Juanon, you're not crazy. I guess I don't know. I shouldn't say we shouldn't read anything into the lack of Bridges.
Oh, this is Trey Murphy the third. Thank you.
Oh, Trey Murphy the third,
not taxpayer mid level.
I got thrown by the little eye.
Bridges. But then the thing with the Pelicans is you're trading a guy that's under contract for 4 more years for one who's going to be a free agent next summer.
Well,
listen, if I'm the Knicks, and this is kind of like the only trade targets that if you're trying to figure out how to move pieces around, if I'm the Knicks and I'm looking to take the limited assets I have right now and figure out a deal that makes me better, the only thing I'd like to see, the only two things I'd like to see is if you're moving Mitch, it's for Herb Jones, adding in, the Wizards pick and a swap and maybe another swap down the line. And then Mitch goes to a third team, of course, because the Pelicans have plenty of their own, but that's plenty of centers. But that's if they even want to be a worse team, which they may not want to be given the fact that they just made the trade that they did.
Like you said,
but maybe a return the player that helps them.
Not rational actors. So, always worth considering. Anthony Sixto, another gem from Rose, needed a bench, significantly upgraded the bench on incredible value. Proper offseason for the roster goes a long way for chemistry. Giannis can join us in 27 for the back-to-back. Look, we said it a year ago. You're going to have to give this front office an entire year. They weren't going to be able to fill in the blanks last summer, and they probably weren't going to be able to fill in the blanks at the trade deadline. Give them another summer. Now we will give credit where credit is deserved. In Clarkson and Yabusele, the Knicks got two, honest to goodness NBA rotation players on a good team. Can they be rotation players on a great team, on a contending team? That remains to be seen. Those questions are still up in the air. But given where they were at, given the financial resources they had to work with, so far, so good.
I will have to jump to a meeting and then I will come back. But the one thing I want to leave you with, lots of things to dig into with Yabusele. Of course, the defense isn't going to be great, but he's an excellent offensive rebounder, as you've, I believe, talked about. But one thing that also may not have been mentioned was transition. He's great in transition.
That's a good
one of the better players in transition. Let's see, what was it? Last season, even with the Sixers, he was in the 82nd percentile in transition shooting talent. In shot making and transition, he was in the 94th percentile, and in shot making efficiency, he was in the 97th percentile. And his quality was good. The looks he was getting was 88th percentile, and his true shooting, I believe, overall, actually, his true shooting overall is in the 81st percentile. So with that, I will bid you adieu.
I don't think I'll still be here by the time your meeting's done.
Okay.
So I will say goodbye to you.
So if it's not an à bientôt, it's an au revoir.
I don't know what any of this shit means.
Merci beaucoup.
Sure.
Adios, amigos.
Later. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, there's nobody better when it comes to this stuff. So that was awesome. And again, good job by him nailing this one weeks ago. Thanks, Anthony. We're finishing up. Oscar Luang had to come on after we signed 2 bench pieces. Let's go Knicks. I'm happy you came on. I don't know what time it is in your part of the world. But I think every Knicks fan could look at these 2 moves, and I think they're worth being happy about for sure. Thanks, Oscar. Swaggy OG. What's going on, Swaggy? Don't know how to feel. Wanted him last offseason, but for that price, it's a steal. Defense is still the team's biggest hole. Again, they've told you actions over words. We're going to hear on media day, and we're going to hear in all the player interviews, we're going to hear up and down how we know defense wins championships. Look at the Thunder. We know if we defend, we're going to win. Yes, they know if they defend, they will win. But the front office with these moves is telling you loud and clear, we are going to maximize the possibilities, or we're going to try to maximize the possibilities on offense. And we are going to try to win with offense, and we are going to bank on the coach and the players having enough pride and pride more than anything else to defend at an acceptable level. We'll see if they can do it. Thanks, Swaggy. Dom Cappuccini, what's going on, Dom? Thank you, man. It's very generous of you. Nice off-season super chat from Dom. My mind is spinning. I just got off vacation, and I can't function with all of this activity. LOL. Thankfully, no work today. What makes it more confusing? It's hard for me to feel this is where we meet our second apron fate. And then we got another one from Dom. I feel like Brock Aller has a 1960s Batman-like escape from doom coming. If not later today, then before the weekend. Same Brock time, same Brock channel. So, as we learned that the Miami Heat are expected to show interest in Damian Lillard. And, look, they don't have to do anything else. They could sign Kevin McCullough Jr. and then sign a player with 0 years of NBA experience, and they could duck the second apron. They're not allowed to go over the second apron. So they're going to duck it. It's not whether they will or won't. They cannot go over the second apron. I would not worry about the finances too much. Like Brock Aller's the best in the business. I would just caution everybody to I think there is a possibility, not a probability, maybe not even a likelihood. But I think there is a possibility that this is the roster again, plus Kevin McCullough Jr. plus a player with no years of NBA experience. And if you're thinking about, well, what about Tyler Kolek? What about Comdadier? What about Ariel Hukporti? In a way, it is a kind of vote of confidence in those guys to know that now they are men number 10, 11, and 12 in some order on your depth chart. That is confidence because guess what? The Knicks top 9, they're not all playing 82 games. They're all going to miss time, which means your Koleks, your Dadiers, your Hukportis, again, barring any trades, really, those guys are all going to see time this year, which is honestly probably for the best. I don't know that you want to necessarily count, if you're trying to win a championship this year, on Tyler Kolek being a day one member of the rotation. Same thing with Dadier, same thing Hukporti. But for all of those guys to be able to step in and contribute this season, I think that is important. And I think, again, in a weird way, this is the moves that they've made are kind of a vote of confidence that those guys will be able to do that. But we'll see. Maybe they do something else, and I'm going to have to eat those words. Kev, do we have anything else? Otherwise, I am going to sign us off. All right. And I will bid everybody adieu. Thanks, everybody, for checking out another emergency live stream, as it were, of the Knicks Film School podcast. If you like what you heard here or saw here, help us out in any way you can. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, give us a nice rating, a nice review. Tell your friends, tell your mother, tell your dog. We'll be back with more fun and games the next time something happens of note, whether it's another signing, a trade, or potentially signing or hiring a head coach. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Andrew, for getting us set up. And thank all of you for checking out another episode. We'll be back again with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.